and best practices how to deal with IT within the company. So ITIL stands for the IT Infrastructure Library. However, right now in version 4 that I will be discussing has evolved to the moment that is encompassing not only IT. This is just a set of the best practices how to deal within the organization with various types of the processes just to be effective and saving as much possible time on different forms of the automation. So after this short introduction, we'll just go through the essential processes from incident management ending on the service level management. I will familiarize you with the definitions of those processes and just let you know what is the, I would say, practical implementation or use within the organization. Probably you have heard some of them, at least most common incident management. Definitely there are just a few of them, as the IT has a number of them. We will just have a look how many of these are available. And then I will proceed to description of key performance indicators and metrics, where we just compare those and to see what's the application that allows us to be up to date with our business goals and our business achievements within the organization. And on the lecture number 2, we will just focus on some other processes. So we have you will hear about a service level management today, but I will just give you a deeper dive on service level management applicability and value for it. Give you some examples. I will just differentiate different type of the agreements, namely operational level agreements, underpinning contracts, and typical service level agreements. And then I will proceed to something which is, would say, commonly known within IT, and you are probably consciously or unconsciously using it also on a daily basis, namely on the availability management. So probably the availability management, the term is quite known to you, but there are quite definitions which came from the reliability theory, which is tightly connected to availability management, namely reliability, maintainability, and serviceability. And then I will just proceed to next point, which be some basic example how we just calculate availability of the some basic systems, whether they are parallel or in line. And then probably you also have heard about the availability calculation and availability presented in form of the percentage. This is so-called availability in lines. I will just make you familiar, and I will just point you to the systems that may use that kind of availability. And then in the lecture 3, we will continue availability management, namely in terms of the cost and availability of the services, how that translates into that. And then we will just proceed to the missing points in the equation, namely supplementary processes in availability management. So namely the capacity and service continuity management, how they relate to availability. And we will also refer to so-called warm, cold, and hot reserves as a part of the form of restoring services after the failure or outage. And then we'll just briefly mention some aspects of security and safety in the form of the comparison what is what. And last point from that lecture, that would be some basic differentiators between the ITIL v3 and v4. v3 is the one which has been established in 2011, still valid for the most companies and entrepreneurs. Our v4 has been 2 years ago, as far as I remember, established and it's, I would say, making some diametrical changes to the V3 that you will just see the differences on that point. And lecture number 4, probably it's much more appealing to you. That will be information about the blockchain and cryptocurrencies brought to you. I will mainly focus on blockchain essential. So what was the origin of the idea, how the idea of the blockchain works, so how that translates this theory into the practice, how is the blockchain structure in terms of the technological elements, and how they interact one with another. And I will familiarize you with also with a couple of the concepts of algorithm, starting with the proof of work, which is the most common. Giving example, for example, Bitcoin, and we will just have a look at the applications, why we should just not to overlook this emerging technology because it's gaining momentum. And in the 5th lecture, I will just give you some examples of the cryptocurrencies. And we will just also have a dive into the history of the payment system to the ancient time, and we'll compare cryptocurrencies with the traditional fiat money. And then we will just proceed to have a deeper dive on process of mining, so proof of work and details. And then we will just also have a look on some more aspects which are related to the expansion of that blockchain technologies. So namely distributed autonomous organizations, smart contracts, and a few more. And we will also have a look on the different consensus mechanisms beyond the proof of work. So that's the main idea behind the set of the lectures from my side. Should you have any questions before we get started with ITIL, or during the any one of my lectures, please feel free to ask. I prefer that you can just unmute and ask rather than leave the message on the chat, because it might be overlooked and I can just respond it at the end of the our meeting. So without any further ado, we can just get started in a moment. So let me just advance to first slide. So as you probably know, IT infrastructure become more and more complex every day. There are some connections between the different part of equipment. So definitely most important and easy to track is hardware, because we can just see it, we can just touch it, we can just follow the lines or some kind of the wires. And this is quite easy to handle if we properly make only an inventory of it. Another aspect is the software, which is a little bit more difficult to inventory and discover. There are the specialized systems that allow for doing that. So first we have to just know what the hardware is, or what is the piece of equipment that the software is installed. Either the hardware, it might be obviously any kind of the virtualized environment. And then we have a different form of connectivities. So not saying only about the wires, but we have, for example, electronic way how we communicate wirelessly, or with the electronic media like email and so on. And then on top of that, there are procedures which should take place, especially in the large organization, that we should just follow them, just to avoid any problems within the infrastructure. For example, if we change something, how we can just revert to that moment, and so on. So everything in the infrastructure should be properly documented and follow the rules or procedures. The weakest spot in the infrastructure usually is a human factor. So you know that people are prone to make errors, and they are doing it constantly, and uh, most of us do not learn on the errors. And this is the a weak point that for the especially large organization is creating a lot of the commotion. So generally speaking, infrastructure is complex, and there are several components that may cause the single point of failure in the whole organization. Getting further, what the ITIL is. The ITIL, as I mentioned already, this is an abbreviation for IT Infrastructure Library. Actually, this is a bunch of the publications that originate in 90s last century, which create so-called framework of best practices for delivering various IT services. So what does it mean in plain words? So these are the some kind of the procedures which were established during the course of a couple of decades, which turned to be effective to work with various levels of organizations. So starting with the regular employees, managers, CIOs, and so on, just to understand how we can just work and work efficiently utilizing the given IT technologies just to save our time. And obviously this is just in the top of the head, at the top of the head, at the back of the head, sorry, to save money and save obviously and more and earn more. So it's being evolved, as I mentioned, it was originated in 80s. Right now, we have actually version 4. So version 1 was built, or I would say established, by the British agency, which is called Central Computer and Telecommunication Agency, which right now no longer exists and is part of the Office of Government Commerce. And along with the another quite famous methodology, this time that is a project methodology Prince2, they were complementary to best practices in Great Britain in 80s and 90s. And till now, they are still one of the leading methodologies from providing the services and dealing with the project management. What the most important is that the ITIL is completely free of charge. So you can just follow these guidelines free. You don't need to, I would say, obey all the rules, or you don't need to implement all the processes. This is, I would say, very flexible. So this is not very strict, as you may just observe, for example, with the ISO norms, that you have to just be compliant from A to Z. Then you can just get a badge that you are compliant. From ITIL, this is some kind of the freelance that you can just simply implement what it is good for your organization. Let's just skip that slide forward. And so these are just more detailed information what the ITIL is. We will also see what ITIL is not, but that will be in the few slides from now. So first of all, the aims not only to reduce the cost and be efficient, but predominantly, as there was origin in 90s or 80s last century, where the IT was not that popular like now. The main idea behind that was to establish that kind of the bond and understanding between the IT geeks, or the persons from IT side of the barricade, and the business side. So on the any kind of the person that we could just support to understand what are our capabilities from the IT side, and from the management side, whether the resources spent on IT are being used wisely, and I would say provide us some kind of the heads up against the competition. So all these bullet points are true. So starting with the reducing general IT cost and saving the organizational time to be effective, and definitely the thing I would say improve skills and experience within the whole organization by providing, I would say, structure services is also I would say one of the aims. So we know what in general what ITIL is, but there is also a term ITSM. IT service management, this is also a class of the systems which support managing IT infrastructure through the framework of the ITIL processes. So this is how you can just, for example, gather information about your infrastructure, how you respond to inquiries about the quality of the service, how you just deal with the influx of the inquiries, why something is not working as I expected, how we can just fulfill the requirements or requests coming from our users, and that they would like to have something installed on their computers, and so on. So generally, this is the set of the capabilities that allows us to do our IT stuff correctly and align to best practices to be effective yet again. So a brief glimpse at the history. So right now, as mentioned already, ITIL v4 has paved the way and is available on the market. However, it was originally born in 1989. And then it was slightly improved in 2001 with the version 2. And the same time, you probably have heard about the agile methodology, how we can just deal with the in swift and flexible way with the project management. So that was also the same year. And then in 2011, that was version v3, which was, I would say, more aligned to the business goals of the many organizations, as 2011 edition was, I would say, slightly dated already. And right now we have ITIL v4, which is called right now the service value system. We will just have a look on that at the end of the next lecture. What it is, this is a set of the capabilities that allows to provide the best quality services and value to the end users. Mostly, most of the customers right now are companies which are ITIL related or focusing in alignment to ITIL is using the ITIL v3, which consists of the 4 pillars, these which are depicted here. Service delivery, for those that might not be aware of, I would just hasten to explain. So this is just a way how the different services, IT and not IT, are being delivered to the customers and the internal users. Service support is how we can just deal with various issues that may happen during the delivery or ongoing processes with the services that are being provided. So how we respond, how we can just deal with that, how we can just respond to the inquiries about the problems within the infrastructure and the services. Application management, that's pretty much self-explanatory, how we provide the control over the software which is within the organization, but also how if we are a software house, how we can just have a control over development with the certain phases, how you assure quality control, and so on. And lastly, security management. This is also quite self-explanatory. So this is shows how we can just take care about the security posture in the organization, So how we educate people, how we can just assure that there is no, I would say, data leakage, how we can just prevent any malware to sneak in to our infrastructure, how we take control about the vulnerability management, how we patch the system, and so on. So these are just the four pillars of the ITIL, which currently still stands within the ITv4, but they were initially proposed in the version v3 in 2011. Okay, so let's just have a look on the next slide. And there are some ups and downs of the ITIL. As I mentioned, ITIL is not that as you may just think with the ISO, so International Standard Organization standards, which has to be met in full extent to get some kind of the badge. You can just simply pick what you want from that, and that makes it also a little bit vague for the number of the companies. So key issue is what is ITIL and how can it serve as a guide to transforming operations? This is the usual question within the number of the companies that are trying to align to their processes to best practices from ITIL. As ITIL framework does not cover the full service management spectrum, nor does it cover the processes at the procedural level, that's quite a problem. So it should just be more precise. So this is for many customers or for many adopters, I would say a big annoyance. Generally, it just says how it should I would say work in general at the organization without giving the precise information about it. So there is also a lot of the buzz in various media around the ITIL that everybody should adopt to it, which is not true. This is an individual decision. So that's pretty much it what you should know from that, and what are the aspects that that are being confused with IT. So definitely, if the company has having some problems with the efficiency, with I would say money flow, or with employees. So ITIL will not be a tool that will solve all these gripes. Definitely, it can just point out how we can improve in various areas. However, if we think that will be like a magic wand that will just with one touch will change anything, that's not true. So definitely, the biggest annoyance, as I mentioned in the previous slide, is the problem with lack of the specific procedures. So it's saying, okay, it would be great if you just handle the situation so and so, but this is not described like within ISO that you should just have that, and that will work. It's not true. Why? Because application or alignment to ITIL from a branch or organization, from the branch of industry, from one to another is completely different. So what is good for one organization not necessarily must be good for another. So we should be, I would say, cautiously understanding what the needs are, and then try to align them to IT. Okay, let's just leave it. This is, I would say, theoretical divagation or discussion. Let's just see about some definitions which might help you understand what this ITIL is all about. So starting with services, service management, we've already discussed what the IT service management is. Right now, most of the companies are not IT service related. However, they are dependent on service management related. So on the service management. So all companies, most of the companies, whether they are manufacturing anything, or they are doing different kind of the service business, they are providing the services. What the service is, the definition clearly states, and this is just some kind of the formalized way how we can just provide value to our clients, what the value is. So whatever it's valuable to you. So for example, if you are a recipient of the internet service, that's a value for you because that can just allow you to or facilitate you work from home, communicating through your computer or through your mobile and so on. So this is just a value for you. For those that are willing to have a car, the value for them, that would be a car and possibility to say move from one point to another, whether this is for leisure or for business. So any kind of the organization is providing some kind of the service which ends up providing the value to clients. So anyway, the service is just through the specific set of the organizational capabilities, we are able to deliver a product which will, I would say, be satisfactory for the recipient. And in return, that recipient will get us in return some money. Or that might be not necessarily money, but predominantly money. So this is a service and service management. So service management allows us to definitely provide the services, and management means that we are having a control how we are doing it and doing it, I would say, without the unnecessary costs. So service management in practice. So we will just continue on the definition. So a set of the interrelated on interactive activities that transform one or more defined inputs and turns them into defined outputs to a defined sequence of actions and their dependencies. That is a little bit lengthy definition of the process, but on the, I would say, shorter is depicted on the screen. So definitely there is some kind of the set of the actions which are measurable, that giving us some kind of concrete results in the form of the service management. They are providing value to the customer, and definitely react to specific events. That's why we have this diagram on the right that are showing us some steps on how we can just move from one to another, and what are the interaction between some events or other processes. So more or less, most of us know what the process is intuitively. So we will not, I would say, ponder on that too much. There are also some definitions within the service management which might be worth to know. Service manager or service owner, that's some person on more than one person in the organization, which is responsible for life cycle of the specific service or services. So we will see more definition of the processes later on. However, the service manager or service owner is responsible for a service which is being delivered. So for example, if we have a company that is providing, let's say, internet service in the form of the stationary via cable, Ethernet cable, or maybe through the fiber optics, or also via Wi-Fi, that they probably will have one or more service manager that will be looking on these services. So the wireless and fiber optics or cable internet. And what that person will do will just look on the demand on the market, about the look on the competition, how we can just be more efficient, more price competitive, how we can just make sure that the service will not be interrupted, and the person will be satisfied, that will be willing continuously pay us the specific fee that it was agreed. Then there are just the process owner or process manager, or in other words, process practitioner. So these are the roles or persons with that roles that helping identify responsibility within the service management process, just to allow to deliver that kind of the service. So they are, I would say, helping hand for service owners just to deliver specific processes that makes us, I would say, enable us to provide the services. And within the process, there are just the specific roles within the process practitioner, like a configuration management, service manager, capacity manager, and so on, and that are persons that are responsible for the defined processes. And then there's also such a definition like function. And the function is a bunch of the people usually aggregated within some kind of the team or a group. They are responsible to provide or perform some activities within the process. So what would be the function? Like some kind of the decision makers for approval on process, which might be, I would say, responsible somebody for just saying yes or no, whether somebody will request a new laptop within the organization and so on. They are just the members of the team, and they are responsible to usually taking a decision. And the role, that's more or less also self-explanatory. Generally, this is a set of assignment duties and also authority to be responsible for something. That might be one person with such a role, or might be also a team with the such roles. Okay, ITIL is saying about the service model and what the service model is. So this is just how you provide the services and how you create the services. And every service which provides a value or anything which is, I would say, somebody is willing to pay. So it starts with some kind of the vision. That vision, what we can just provide, let's say how we can just be more competitive, let's say with providing internet services. So let me just give an example. Like with Elon Musk has just come up to idea that they will just provide the internet from the outer space. So they will just set the satellites, and through the satellites there will be something I would say available for those that are deprived from internet because of their location, remote location. So that was the vision. So we can just provide internet for everybody. And then this we have to just decompose it into processes, which are, I would say, something in general. So we can just provide the way how we can just send the satellites into space, how we can just then maintain them, and so on. And within these processes, which are the vision is decomposed into, there are the procedures. And procedures are saying that for maintaining that we should do so and so. And for the procedures, there are tasks. These tasks are being assigned to the person just to keep the machine going. And going into the service lifecycle, this is very popular. It was introduced in the ITIL v3 and v3 and is still ongoing. It's defining how the service, so this is the way how we provide value to our customers, or internal or external, how we can just be more effective. And this is being divided into some phases, which you can see here in the form of the bullet points on this graphic. So starting with the strategy. So we have to just find out our position on the market, whether we would be successful. So that's with like with the yet again with the Elon Musk and their styling, whether we are competitive, or how can be innovative and competitive, and whether not only being competitive is important, how could be profitable. because coming up with something which somebody has never dealt with, that may end up in the bankruptcy, because probably that might have been already attempted to be delivered, but ended up without no resources. So that in the strategy, we have to just decide what is the aim and how we can just try to achieve this business goal. So at least we will not go bankrupt. Then we have to just design that kind of the service from scratch. So service strategy is more or less like a vision, which was described a moment ago. And then design, we have to just prepare the offering for the market, how we position ourselves, how we can just advertise, how we can just be more, I would say, attractive, especially if we are unknown in that kind of the branch of the business. And then we will create a moment when before we provide that service, that is a service transition. So from the conceptual phase into the practice, so into the service operation. And service operation, this is the moment how we can just providing the services, and we are trying to realize our business goals. So this is the phase also called business value realization. And this is a cyclic process. So from the moment that the service is being in operation, we should just have a look and watch our back against our competitors, because even though that we are the first of the market, or and there is a lot of the competition is trying to, I would say, undermine our position as getting with the offers which are in terms of the price better and so on. So this is a continual service improvement. All these elements are being translated into the processes in the service life cycle that you can just see here. There are lots of them, which we will not discuss, because this is not the main aim of this course, or at least that fracture, that fracture of it. This is just to let you know that such a thing like ITIL exists, and how that I would say makes sense for the persons like me. We will just only mention a few processes, which are depicted in red, like incident management, problem management from the service operation. So we will not mention about anything about the service strategy. So from ongoing operation, there's two. From the service transition, we will just discuss the change and service and asset configuration, and the release deployment, and a bit about the knowledge management. And then from the service design, we will just have a discussion on the service level management. And there will be a few words also on the continual service improvement. So this diagram, what you can just see here, this is a different transition or different form of the presentation. And you can just see where these processes can be executed on the which phase of this service lifecycle. So from the service strategy to the service operation, that you can just see, for example, that IT financial management is being stretched, or demand management. However, the incident problem management that we'll be discussing about, and change management or other that are, for example, in certain few phases, like the service design to service operation and so on. So this is just to give you a glimpse of the eye. For example, change management is a little bit longer because it stretches through the all, and knowledge management as well. But we will just have a look in the moment what these processes are. Should you have any questions, just feel free to ask. If you don't have any questions, we can just continue. So going further, incident management, this is one of the most important and widely used processes, even though that you are or you have worked, or you are working in some professionally in some kind of organization, you have never named incident management. You probably have dealt with already, because most of the companies which are providing services, they are to some extent using incident management, even though that might not be aware about it. So what the incident management is? Incident management is the starting point to identify the issues with the services which are being provided. So generally, the definition of the incident, which the incident management is dealing with, is some kind of the unplanned interruption of the usually IT service or unplanned reduction in its quality. So I will be just using this example that I have already started with the internet connectivity. So if you experience some kind of the degradation of the internet connection, so everything is being loaded very slowly, and you have never had this before, or this is something unexpected, and that is an incident for you, and you probably would like to remediate it. So you are not doing it yourself, but you are turning into your service provider. And for example, the same story would be if the internet is completely gone, so you are not able to connect, or something went wrong, so your router is not able to get an IP address or something. So this is an incident, and the process with the incident management from the service provided is aimed to remove the incident as soon as possible, to restore the agreed service level. What the agreed service level is, that we will just discuss by the occasion of service level management. Generally speaking, right now, a service level for you, and this is just the prompt reaction from the service provider to provide you on the undisturbed internet access, and that's the main deal. The process is actually structured in an incident diagnosis. So somebody from the provider has to just try to find out what the reason is that your internet access is not as it was promised to you. It has to be also registered the case that give the priority and categorize. For example, there is, I would say, lack of the internet, or maybe there is a connectivity issue, whatever. So generally, incident is trying to remediate as soon as possible what has happened and provide you either the immediate answer what has happened, because, for example, we know that our for example, cable main network to the backbone has been broken, or maybe let's say the main router that has been also down, or something like that. If we know that, we can just inform upfront the person who just tuned to us with the incident, and just give the indicative information when the issue will be resolved. If we have no idea why the issue existed, and we are not able to remediate it right away, that incident is being considered as a problem. And the problem, as you can see, the definition says that this underlying cause of one or more incidents. So if we don't know what the issue behind the incident is, so what caused it, or so why we are suffering from the performance loss, that it's being right now a problem. And the problem management, within these processes like incident, problem management, we have also the managers, the persons who are trying to deliver the services in uninterruptible manner. But what is worth to mention regarding the problem management? Firstly, is yet again to remediate the incident, which we don't know what was the reason behind. So we have to just assign the tasks for the technicians or the person who can just identify and help to resolve it. If the problem requires some changes in the infrastructure, or let's say ordering some equipment or changing the processes, that we cannot do it straight away. The larger organization is, the more structure we should just deal with any change to organization. Why? quite simple answer. Probably you know it already. So if we are changing some kind of the process, or we are changing the infrastructure, and this is not approved or documented, or both, that later on that will run us into troubles. Because let's say we have just replaced the faulty router, and that router has been configured in some manner, and we don't have any documentation, so we will do it our best to best our knowledge how to make it running. We have set the password and so on, and if that is not approved or documented, when the for example in a year or so somebody will come and try to reconfigure it, he will not find the way. How was it? Because there is no documentation, we might be no longer in the organization. Somebody has to reset the router, and that will cause yet again some commotion, because some services might be impacted and so on. So every change requires a request for change. So implementation with some approval, and there is another process involved into that, which you probably already have in mind. That is a change management that we will have a discussion in a moment. What else if we know a temporary solution for the lack of internet? For example, we know that right now we are not able to provide the internet over the cable, because the let's say some excavator just cut out the main cable to the backbone of the internet. However, we have an alternative method how we can just provide this connectivity via Wi-Fi. That would be a workaround which is delivered for the users. Some of the network providers, or let's say internet service providers, they have in at least various huge cities also a network of the Wi-Fi points that you can just alternatively connect. So like for example UPC or other, they you may have noticed on occasion when you check your Wi-Fi available list that you also have a UPC point that you can just, if the cable connection is broken, you can just connect alternatively with the Wi-Fi. So that would be a workaround. And if we know what are the symptoms of the incidents and the workaround for that, that we can just document that as known errors. So if we know, for example, the certain steps, for example, when your, let's say, Windows is hanging up and rebooting constantly, and that is documented, that is known error that time. Okay, so just considering that kind of the diagram down below, if we find some problem, or so maybe not problem, but the incident in the infrastructure, or that is an error that is being then simply recognize an incident. If the incident cannot be remediated instantly, we don't know what is caused, that is being then a problem. The problem when it's resolved, documented, or provided a workaround, that is a known error. And then we can just proceed to so-called request for change to get rid of the root cause of the problem. And when the request for change is approved and change is implemented, that we have a solution. Okay, let's just have a look on the next process, which would be the change management. So we have discussed that any change into organization should be subject to request for change. For example, we would like to have a new computer. So that new computer has to be ordered. It has to be approved by some kind of the financial manager that the company will spend it, and you will, I would say, return your old equipment and get a new one. Somebody has to install it, or at least register within the organization and so on. Why you should just do it? Quite simple, yet again, explanation. For example, that at least somebody know that you will have a new computer. because you are not, I would say, only one employee in the organization. That might be a number of persons like you. And if the company will lose the count of their equipment, that's also not good. From the financial standpoint, some of the equipment is not bought, it's being leased. So somebody has to keep track of that kind of the transaction. So every equipment, every piece of the system which has any value in the company is being called configuration item. Not necessary. There must be let's say, IT equipment. It might be, for example, a car, or let's say some kind of the machine which is on the production line, because this is something which is necessary for a service delivery. Let's say that you are a courier, or the guy that is, I would say, in the field. You need a car just to not move from home to work. Company car will serve you to, say, meet with your customers and deliver something. Ultimately, it serves you purpose and service delivery. Okay, and going to the request for change. So request for change always encompasses one or more configuration items. So for example, if you request, let's say, the changing your old dated laptop, that will be a part of that request, included the information about your old equipment and what you would like to get for new from structure list usually. Generally, the main idea behind the change management is as follows. So just to implement all the potential changes into processes in some kind of the controlled and documented manner that will do not disrupt the ongoing processes that your company provides. So how you can just understand that? So for example, let's say that we would like to, we know that there is a certain server that is working slow because their, let's say, set of the disks are, I would say, a little bit dated, and they are always, I would say, set of the disk is slow and is almost full. And we have to just simply expand this capacity somehow. So if that would be done without the request for change, that somebody will probably come, will just turn off that machine, add another drive, formatted it, add it to the operating system, and that would be starting it again. However, that would say create another problem, because some of the people may have used that server during that phase that we are trying to replace some component of it. So that we have to create a request for change, that somebody will have a look whether there is a suitable time frame for upgrading that server, and yeah, probably that would be some kind of over the weekend, or maybe in the night, or maybe we can, in meantime, we'll switch from that service, the services, to another, just to assure that operation to be quick and easy, and the least interruptible for the processes. Okay, so there is a change management. Another process which is essential is a service asset and configuration management. What this process does is just gathering information about the inventory of the company. So basically, all configuration items has to be discovered and saved in some kind of the inventory. Usually this is some kind of the system. Some companies are having this list on the Excel, which is not very convenient. Generally, the main idea behind it is build so-called configuration management database, in short CMDB, which shows not only the list of the configuration items, so computers, routers, cars, machinery, and so on, but also tries to show who the owner is, when it was bought, what is the, I would say, its current state, whether this is, I would say, acquired, this is in production, maybe it's maintained, maintenance or so on, and also try to also show the dependencies between the elements. Why? Yet again, let's just assume that we are trying to turn off one of the servers because we are upgrading it. We know, or we may not know, that this server is providing some services to our customers or the other part of our company. So if it's being down, some people internally and externally will be impacted. So if we don't know that dependency, that I would say can create a chain reaction. So this is the service asset and configuration management helpful, as we have the information that kind of the piece of the equipment or configuration item exists, who is responsible, what is the, I would say, its capability, and how it's being connected to our services. So this is quite imperative to have it. Okay, and then knowledge management. This is a very frequently overlooked process, which is quite helpful, especially for the organization that have lots of the knowledge, which is hard to come by. So if we are, I would say, documenting everything and exposing it to the customer, or internally or externally, that we are dealing with the knowledge management. So we are just exposing the Q&A articles, documenting the problems that we have solved. So, for example, if somebody is calling with us with some kind of the configuration error of some application, we can just point him out quite easily to the article without the knowledge management. So instead of personally being involved as an employee to solving some issues, we can just simply shift that responsibility to user, pointing out that this kind of the precise issue or problem has been already solved, and you can just refer to it to help yourself. So this is quite important, especially in the incident management. So we can have some kind of the symptoms that somebody can just provide us. And this is already documented. We can just simply say, okay, this is the issue, and you have to just do this, and the issue or incident is gone. And no longer we have to involve the some technicians or the creating the from incident problem and involve following persons. Okay, for many organizations, they are dealing partially as a software house, or they are developing either for the customers the software or for their own purpose, rather than buying from the commercial vendors software. They are dealing with the release and deployment process. Generally, this is a well-known software engineering issue that we have to just simply act on purpose and a very structured way. So we have to just, in order to build a software, we have to just not only sit behind the computer, behind the keyboard and start typing, but it has to be thoroughly thought, planned, then build it and test it. And this is not alone. This is not just enough. This is just also known from the DevOps that you have to then release, deploy, and then monitor the ongoing process. And this usually after a while is being cycled again, that we have to just think about some kind of the new features, or we can just to remediate some issues found. So yet again, we have to sit behind the computer and code something. Then we have to build a new release and test it, and then send it to the customer. So this is the main idea behind the sorry, behind the release and the deployment process. And the release deployment process is also relying on the CMDB. So not only configuration item or knowledge articles are in the CMDB, but also on the following elements of the code. So we have to have a code documentation. We have also references to repositories and every piece of the code which is being created has to go through the phases that you can just see. So first we are working on development, then it must be tested before it's being released, and then it's being in operation in the production phase. And then even though that we have a new version, we are not getting rid of it. It has to be archived, because it may happen that for some reasons the new version, even though that was supposedly thoroughly tested, causing some issues. It might be colliding with the existing software. Then if we gotten rid of the previous version, we are not able to perform a rollback, which is sometimes important. Okay, let's just advance to next process, so which is event management. Event management, as the definition says, generally this is any registrable status change of the configuration item needed to perform the service. So we are just, for example, monitoring the aforementioned network, not network, but internet service provided service for providing internet, and there's components like routers or any other equipment or special servers. And the event is the potential situation that from time to time something is happening on that equipment, and this is vital to provide the service. So for example, we have some kind of the degradation of the let's say throughput of the router, or maybe it is being restarted on occasion, and any that kind of the situation is being considered as an event. And for that process, we should just register any kind of the situation, just to be able to address potential problems which are coming along with them. So this is the event management. And finally, we are reaching the service level management, which we'll be discussing in the, I would say, broader extent for the next meeting. So service level management is its aim is to provide the mutual understanding from the service provider and the recipient of the service. What are the obligations from one and another side, and try to meet them. So generally, that's, as you can see, an agreement to ensure the terms of providing a specific service to a specific recipient. So what that might be, yet again, from the service provider, internet service provider, we, as a recipient, we expect that this internet will be guaranteed that's gonna be available, let's say, 24/7. We can just read in the agreement that if it's down, we can just reach over the phone or a specific form or somehow to the provider, and the provider will guarantee us that the issue will be resolved, let's say, within the 24 hours. And it also guarantees that this internet connection will have, let's say, upload speed up to, let's say, 100 megabits and download up to 500 megabits. So this is just the agreement. Usually this is a form of the written agreement, not the verbal one, that both provider and the recipient will sign and agree to obey all the points from that. So definitely there will be also some kind of the gratification for the provider in form of some monetary values paid, let's say, monthly for the providing the service. And that kind of the agreement formally from the IT perspective is being called service level agreement, or in short, SLA. So these kind of the offerings which service provider provides, they are called offerings in service catalog. Service catalog generally, if there is a service internet service provider, that you can just get some leaflet, or you can just go to their web page and then you can just see what they are offering. So it's not formal service catalog most likely for the, I would say, public service providers, or rather service catalog in the form of the list of the offerings like in menu in the restaurant. That is something which is being usually rather internally provided. And service level requirements, especially from the business standpoint, are very formal. So these are what we expect to get and what we are willing to pay for. So let's say we are, I would say, company, and our business depends on the internet provider. We have to have a guarantee that if the service provider, I would say, the service internet service is being interrupted, that somebody will immediately respond and provide some remediation to the situation. If you are just a mere user, that definitely that's not the big deal. And the traditional service level management works everywhere. So whenever we make any arrangements, even with the electricity, for electricity with some kind of the power industry company, when we sign, if we buy a flat or house, we have to just sign agreement to provide us electricity. And we get a document which states how, I would say, how much power is being delivered, how much we are being charged for that, and what is the phone if something is broken, and what is the, say, at the time how we can just respond to that. So this is also the formal service level agreement, although probably most of you didn't know that is called like that, because this is just true perspective of the IT. Okay, so that's the service level management. We will get back to it on the next meeting. I will just also recall what we have heard, because that's going to be somewhere in the future. So probably we will already, that's going to be probably already forgotten. But right now, let's just move to one of the last aspects today, and namely about the metrics and key performance indicators. Somebody has said these quite wise things which are depicted as a bullet points. So you can't control what is undefined, and then obviously you cannot measure what is not under the control, and finally you cannot improve what is not measured. So this is quite important to know. So all IT processes that we have discussed are more or like behind that phrases. So configuration management and service and asset management is responsible to provide you 360-degree view on your infrastructure, on your configuration items that at the beginning you may not be even aware of. There are lots of the companies, they have no clue what their assets are. So if they don't know what their assets are, they wouldn't be able to control it. So this is quite important. So the first step in every organization is just to perform a thorough investigation on their inventory and discover all potential configuration items and store it somewhere in the, let's say, configuration management database or an Excel, whatever. That allows us to have a control over the infrastructure. I'll just give you a quite quick example. So if somebody is calling us, we have so-called incident management is calling us and saying, okay, my computer is broken. I cannot log in. Yeah, something is wrong. You are asking for the name of the person you identify, that's fine, and ask what the computer is. And that person replies to you, yeah, it's black, it has a lid, it says Dell on it. Okay, so that's not good enough. If you don't have an inventory that you, by the name, you will be able to connect the person with the asset, that it's quite difficult over the phone or somehow remotely identify the asset that the person has struggling with. So this is just the idea why it should be, I would say, combine all these elements. Okay, going to the metrics and KPIs, I just wanted to show you how to measure, or first of all, to differentiate what the metric is and what the KPI is. So going to the next slide. So key performance indicators, these are measurable values which shows us how efficiently company achieving business goals. So this is something quite important. So this is measurable indicator of how the company achieving a business goal. And it's showing some indication about the performance of the processes, and just trying to show where we are, whether we are underachieving, overachieving, or just on the track with our plans. Whereas the metric is quantitative measure that is used to track asset status of the specific business process. So this is asset status of the specific business process. So this is different from the KPI. So, and they cannot, these metrics and KPIs, they are not the same, cannot be interchangeably used. And let me just give you a very example how these both are interacting within the organization. Let's just assume a very simplistic example. We have a business goal to be, I would say, a prominent manufacturer of the solid state drives. And we would like to have a production of 20,000 of the such discs yearly. And that is our business goal. And our KPI would be, I would say, met if we create 20,000 SSD. Currently, let's say we are on the 10th month of production. So 2 months left, then has been only 5,000 produced. So, and this is our metric. So you can just see the difference. So the goal is to be, I would say, kind of the prominent manufacturer being able to produce 20,000 SSD. And the current status is showing that is only through the 10 months from 12, produce only 5. So you can just see how we can just translate the KPI into metrics. So we can just simply, our goal was 20,000 and we have created only 5,000. So we actually met the 25% of the key performance indicator. So conclusion out of this KPI, that means that we are not able to achieve our business goal, which is exposed, or I would say align with the KPI, which says that is only 25% of this goal achieved. So that's something which you can just keep in mind. And some few words about the continual service improvement. So this is the part of the, I would say, pillar of the ITIL, which is aligned in, I would say, some kind of the recurring behavior, which is based on so-called Deming cycle. And Deming was one of the economists, American economists, which come up with the idea which we can do in cycle. So we can just prepare something, plan actually, like a change. Then we can just decide who will do what. Then we can just perform that change into the organization, let's say improve our process. Then we will look for the results. So we can just dealing with the checked. And then we can just accordingly act on that change. So whether we are successful or not, we can just simply hold on for a second if we are, I would say, getting our plans done. or we can just simply start over and start planning again. And service management is also called by so-called 4Ps. So they are just the components of every service management. This is like with the infrastructure, we are relying on the people. Definitely, we are also having processes there, products. So the values which we produce are products, so tools, that could be some kind of the monitors, whatever, cars, or also the services, and partners which we rely on. Without the partners, so like we are a car manufacturer, we have to have a contract with the company that is manufacturing some kind of the dashboards, wheels, spare tires, and so on. We are not, I would say, independent. So these are the things of the which are important from the service management perspective. ITIL is also dealing with the service delivery levels. So right now we have that kind of the different approach. In the previews that we have, let's say, some hardware infrastructure that was some kind of the operating system application, and it was very common for every organization. Right now, organization right now are moving from this classical approach to that pyramid that you can just see here, which will be decomposed into details in the following slide. So we are just can just rely on some foreign infrastructure, that we don't have any equipment, network equipment, physical equipment. We can just simply rely on somewhat else infrastructure with our OS, middleware, and applications. Or we can just also get the whole platform as a service. So we can just only put our application, or we can just completely rely on everything. We can only use our data on somebody else's applications. So that is, I would say, more structured way. So the old approach was on the premise. So all the components, starting with service through the application and the data, was on the customer side or our side, and then that was also right now into change into infrastructure, platform, and the software as a service. So that is also good to know. And just to conclude what you have had, so why ITIL makes sense? Just a short summary about that. So first of all, it was introduced as a common language to be able to understood from non-IT persons. And it's still like that by definition and structuring the processes that make us, I would say, a better company in terms of the more structure, more streamlined approach to providing the services. So this is something that allows also better deal with the resources like time and the money, and to be, I would say, more reasonable to provide the services. So generally, what is quite important for every company which is aligned to ITIL is to be aligned to agreements which are being defined within the service level management, and improve the processes if it's necessary through the continual service improvement. So these are the things which are, I would say, like a takeaway from today's lecture. So having said that, I would like to ask you whether you have any questions. We have some spare moments before I will conclude the presentation. So if there is any question, I will be happy to address. If not, we will just meet next time and we continue to discuss the aspects from the service level agreement in details, and also some other aspects from the ITIL perspective. So I will also familiarize you next time with some details the essential differences between IPv3 and v4. Okay, so having said that, if there is no other questions, actually there was none questions. I would like to say you have a good day and enjoyable rest of the week, and hear you next time. Cheers, guys.
Thank you. Have a good week.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Paul.
bye.
Have a good day.